Hello everyone, Jolene here from Bookworm Adventure Girl. Welcome back. I hope that you are all well. This is where I talk about the books that I'm reading, and I like to read diverse books and I highlight Canadian literature. If you are new, thanks so much for checking out my channel. Please hit subscribe and stick around. Hopefully the lighting is okay. It's a little bit darker than I'd like, but anyway. Today I'm going to be talking about 60 best campus novels from the last 100 years. This was a list put out by LitHub last November, so almost a year ago. So I thought that I would highlight some of the books on the list that I've read, the ones that I own, and the ones on my TBR. And there also are a few that I'm surprised didn't make the list. If you watched my back to school book tag, you might remember that I said it was the first time in 20 years that I wouldn't be going back to school. Well, shortly after I posted that video, it turns out that I did go back to school, and I have been on a new university campus now for a couple of weeks. So I'm very happy to have found a place that I think is a good fit, and I'm happy to be starting my 20th year in education. So the list that LitHub put out last year is a very diverse list. I will leave a link to it in the description box below so that you can see the entire list. There are 3 books on the list that I've read. One of my faves is Bunny by Mona Awad. This is a horror book that takes place at a private school. It starts off so normal, and then it becomes anything but normal. And this is just one of those books that I kept thinking about after I read it. And I always say that after reading it, you'll never see bunnies in the same way again. Normal People by Sally Rooney. This is a story about 2 friends in high school who go to university. It's about how their relationship changes over time and how complicated that all can be. This is more of a slow burn, more character driven. I would say more character than plot driven. The next book I actually just finished this week. It's Wilder Girls by Rory Power. This is a pandemic YA horror mystery book. People are in quarantine on the campus, and then one of the girls goes missing. So they're deciding if they should break the quarantine to go find her or not. And I'm still thinking about this book, but I will be talking about it more in my September wrap-up. So hopefully I will have gathered my thoughts by that time, and I will tell you all about it. There are 4 books on the list that I own, but that I haven't read yet. I'm not even sure that I realized that they would be considered campus novels. I have Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro, which has a synopsis that sounds a bit like Wilder Girls. It takes place at an English boarding school, and they have little to no contact with the outside world. And then when a few of the students finally leave the grounds, they start to come to understand what the school really was. And I've heard so many good things about this book. I'm actually really surprised that I haven't read it yet, and I'm really looking forward to getting to it. Another popular author that I have never read is Zadie Smith, and I have On Beauty on my shelf, and this is about a professor in England who is married to an American, and then there are 3 children who are taking very different paths in life, and the professor is trying to figure out what his future holds. And the family dynamics in this sound like it will be very interesting. It also says that this is a funny book, which I think is always nice for a change for me. Another book on my shelf is Admission by Hanff Korelitz. This has been on my shelf for a while, and it is about an admissions officer at Princeton. And it seems to be about kind of like a play on the word admission. There is the job of admissions to the university, but then there's also admissions that the main character needs to make. And I just hope that this will be a good one. Another book that's been on my list for a while is The Art of Fielding by Chad Harbach. I knew that this was a story about baseball, but I never thought about where it was set. And it makes this campus novel list because it takes place at a school on the shore of Lake Michigan. So the story revolves around 5 characters, and I've heard really good things about this book, and that it has a heartwarming story. I'm actually surprised again that I haven't read it yet, because it has been on my shelf for a long time. So this brings us to the books that are on my TBR that I really would like to read. The first book is one that's been on my radar for so long. I really, really want to read it, and that is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I need to read this book. I love Donna Tartt's writing, and I have heard that this is her best book so far. Stoner by John Williams. I became aware of this book because of BookTube, and everyone I know who has read it has given it a positive review. So that's another one I really want to read. The Lords of Discipline by Pat Conroy. I need to read more Pat Conroy. I've only read The Prince of Tides, which I loved, so I need to get to this one too. This takes a look at a military perspective, and it's about hazing and friendship and loyalty and betrayal, and it totally sounds like something I would enjoy. Another author that I want to read more is Richard Russo. His novel Straight Man is about a novelist who is chairing an English department. And just the way that this book is described makes me very intrigued by the main character. The Marriage Plot by Jeffrey Eugenides. If you've been watching my channel for a bit, then you might remember that Jeffrey Eugenides wrote one of my favorite books of last year. So I would love to read more. The Marriage Plot is one that I didn't realize was even a campus novel, but the main character is an English major, so I guess it makes sense. Plus, I think that it's going to have some 80s nostalgia, and I love that. The Idiot by Elif Batuman has been on my radar for a while. I like how this one links several communities. It takes place at Harvard, but it also takes place in Hungary, and I think it will be interesting to see any connections made between those 2 communities. Real Life by Brandon Taylor. This is one of those books that shows up every once in a while, and I always think it's a book that I should check out. I need to read this book. So this novel is about a university town. Students who are queer are hiding who they are, and when they don't, violence occurs. So this is not the best synopsis, I know, but it's one of those books that I think I will appreciate more knowing little going into it. Another novel with a Harvard setting that I've been interested in this one as well, and it's Ghosts of Harvard by Francesca Serritella. This is about a Harvard freshman who is dealing with her brother's suicide. He had schizophrenia, and now she is hearing voices too. I think this sounds intriguing. Catherine House by Elizabeth Thomas. This is a novel that I've seen mixed reviews on, but I'm still interested in finding out for myself, so I want to read it. I think that this is one of those stories where a group of students has a secret. Maybe it's a secret society, I'm not sure, but I do want to find out. The Secret Place by Tana French is next on my list, and Tana French is an author that I've never read, and yet every time I hear someone talk about her books, I'm interested. So this is one that I added to my TBR basically because I want to read this author, but this is part of a series, so it's like the 4th or 5th book, so I have some reading to do before I actually get to this one. Going back to Harvard, it's a popular spot. Harvard Square by Andre Aciman. This book is about immigration and assimilation, which are 2 topics that I'm interested in. So I really look forward to seeing how this plays out in this one. And then the final book on my TBR from the list is I Have Some Questions for You, and this is by Rebecca McKay. This author is one of the judges for the Giller Prize this year, and I have another book by her on my shelf that I really want to read. I Have Some Questions for You is a mystery thriller novel, and the main character kind of wants to go forward with her life after some traumatic events. But then the way things end up, she ends up becoming involved in solving her roommate's death. So this could definitely, I think, be interesting. So the list is, I think, a good one with a lot of books that I'm interested in, but I am surprised to not see a few books on the list. One of them is The Divines by Ellie Eaton, and this has been on my shelf for a while, and it had some hype when it was first published. It's about taking a look back at the past too, and one woman's experience at an English boarding school, and what had happened there. My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elisabeth Russell. This definitely had a lot of hype when it came out, and now I rarely hear about it. This is an intense book. I loved it. I loved how the author told the story of a young girl at a boarding school who was being groomed by her teacher. It is a book that really stayed with me for a long time after I finished it. Girls with Bright Futures by Tracy Dobmeyer. This was an interesting story that looked at what lengths some people are willing to go to in order to get their children into prestigious schools. And then the last book that I was a bit surprised to not see on the list was All Girls by Emily Layden. Now, this was not my favorite book. I didn't care for the execution, but the concept of it was very compelling. And it was, as girls arrive at this all-girls prep school, there are billboards along the road that say someone at the school is a rapist. The story follows these girls over a year. And for me, I thought that the book could have been structured differently to, I think, have more of an impact. But it's still worth a read if you enjoy these types of stories. So these are the books on the list that I've read, that I want to read, and some that I'm surprised didn't make the cut. I've only shared about a third of the books because it's 60 books, so I will leave a link below to the article so you can check it out and see the complete list. And then please let me know if you have read any of these, if there are any on your TBR, or if there are any that you would add to the list, any that you would recommend that I haven't read yet. For those of you in education, I hope that the school year has started off well. I look forward to chatting with you in the comments. Thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and don't forget to make every day an adventure.